In this video, we're going to learn how to factor out the GCF. Factoring out the GCF. Okay, now GCF is the greatest common factor. Now, we already know how to find the greatest common factor, right? That's what we did from page 54, 55, and 56. We learned how to find the greatest common factor. Now we're going to factor it out. So our first step, right? Our first step in doing it is to identify what the GCF is. And again, this is what you already learned. You can check your notebook. The pages I just said, pages 56 through 58, or sorry, 54 through 56. Okay, that was assignment 17. So you already learned how to do this first step. So you're going to see, I'll kind of review it here, but I'm expecting that you already know when you look at three terms how to say, okay, what's the GCF of these terms? Okay, now step 2 is we're going to factor out the GCF, and this is what's new, and I'll show you what it means. Factoring is the opposite, factor is the opposite of multiplying. Right, so dividing is also the opposite of multiplying, right? So it's a little tricky, but factoring, like let's say I say, okay, I want you to factor 15. You say, okay, well 15 is 3 times 5. Well, if I do then 3 times 5, then that equals 15, right? So factoring is the opposite of multiplying. It undoes multiplying, okay? And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna check the answer by multiplying. We're gonna, once we've factored out our GCF, we've done the opposite of multiplying, we're going to multiply to make sure we get back our answer. Okay, so this is what you can expect to see in this video is these 3 steps. Okay, so let's take a look at some examples of what this looks like, what it looks like, what does it mean to factor out a GCF. Okay, so here is our first example. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to identify the GCF. Now here I have 3 terms, 1, 2, 3. So forget the plus and the minus signs for a moment. You're going to figure out what's the GCF of 6x to the 3rd power, 9x to the 2nd power, and 15x. Okay, so how do I do this, right? This is, we've already done this. I'm going to look at the 3 numbers first. So 6, 9, and 15. What's the greatest common factor of 6, 9, and 15? What's the greatest common factor? And I notice, okay, well, 3 times 2 is 6, 3 times 3 is 9, and 3 times 5 is 15. So 3 is a common factor. Is there a bigger common factor? Well, let's see, does 6 multiply to 9 or 15? No. So the greatest common factor is 3. Now, what about the variables? Well, here there's 3 x's, right? Here there's 2 x's, and here there's 1 x. So there's 1 x in common all the way through. Okay, there's 1 x in common all the way through. And so the greatest common factor is 3x. Okay, so this was step 1. I found the greatest common factor. Now, step 2, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that greatest common factor, I'm going to put it on the outside of a set of parentheses, like this. Okay, now what I want to do is create the expression inside these parentheses that if I multiply, 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 I'd get this back. That's my goal, to get this back. So what I'm doing right now, if I multiply, right, I want to get this back. So what I'm trying to do right now is I'm factoring out 3x out of each of these. So I'm asking myself, 3x times what? 3x times what equals 6x to the 3rd power? Well, let's start with the number. 3 times what is 6? 2. X times what is x to the 3rd power? Well, this is 1x, and if I want there to be a total of 3 x's, I need to have 2 more x's, right? And you can actually kind of see it here, right? There was 2 x's left over when I took off this 1x. Okay, next, 3x times what is 9x squared? So I'm first noticing it's positive. 3 times what is 9? 3 times 3 is 9. And x times what is x squared? Well, I need another x. Okay, now I notice for this one, there's a minus sign. So I'm going to put a minus sign because I need to do 3 times negative something to get negative 15x. So 3 times what is 15? 3 times 5 is 15. And what about the x? Well, there's an x here, and there's just one x here. So 3x times negative 5 will be negative 15x. Perfect. Okay, so this here is my answer. This is my answer. And my step 3 is just to check. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to distribute. I'm going to multiply. This I already know how to do. 3x times 2x squared. So 3 times 2 is 6. X times x times x, that's 6x to the third. 3 times 3 is 9. X times x is x squared. And 3 times negative 5 is negative 15. And because it was 3x times negative 5, it's negative 15x. So now check. Does it match? Yes. Okay, so I know my answer is correct. This is my answer here. And I just did that last step to check it. Okay, let's do another one. So this was my first example. Let's do another example here. First, I'm looking for my greatest common factor. So let's look at the numbers first, right? So first, I'm looking for the greatest common factor. And I'm looking at numbers first, and I say, oh, this is the number 1 right here. So right away, I know my greatest common factor is going to be the number 1 because the greatest common factor, the only factor of 1 is 1. Okay, now what about the variables? So there's 4 x's here, there's 3 here, and there's 2 here. So how many are in common? Well, it's these 2 that are in common, right? So my greatest common factor here is x squared. Okay, now I'm going to factor out, this is my second step, I'm going to factor out that GCF. So I'm going to put x squared on the outside of the parentheses, and I'm going to say, okay, what would I have to multiply x squared by? Multiply, multiply, multiply to get this. X squared times what is x to the 4th? Well, x times 2 more x's would be x to the 4th. Okay, x squared times what would be negative 5x to the 3rd? Okay, well first I notice it's negative, so I'm going to have to multiply by negative. This is a 1, so 1 times what is 5? 5. Here there's 2 x's, and I need there to be 3 x's, so I need 1 more x, right? X squared times negative 5x would be 5x, negative 5x squared, negative 5x cubed, excuse me. And then x squared times what will be 7x squared? I notice this is positive, so I'm going to put positive. And this is 1 times what is 7? 7, and this is x squared, this is x squared. So I'm all set. This is my answer. Right here. Okay, this is the factored version of this. I've factored out the GCF, and I'm going to go ahead and check it by multiplying. So x squared times x squared is x to the 4th. X squared times negative 5x. X squared times negative 5x. So let's see. This is 1 times negative 5 is negative 5. X squared times x is x cubed. And x squared times 7, this is positive 7, is positive 7x squared. And let me check. Is it the same as what I started with? Yes. So my answer is correct. And I'm just going to add this. This was assignment number 20. Makes it a little easy to keep track. Okay, and we're going to do assignment number 21. You're going to get a chance to practice this right here on the next page.